All right, checking YouTube audio at 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for City of Delafield, November 19th, 2025, coming to order at 7 o'clock p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mayor Iker.
Present.
Alderperson Wilkin.
Here.
Commissioner Hausman.
Here.
Commissioner Merrick.
Here.
Commissioner Schultz.
Here.
City Planner Amy Barrows. Building Inspector Scott Hussinger.
Here.
Excused this evening are Commissioner Cahalan, Commissioner Donovan, and Commissioner Cranky.
All right, thank you. Item 4, looking for approval of the minutes from the October 29th regular meeting and public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
Any discussion or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Or abstentions? Okay.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Abstains. All right, Mike abstains. Minutes are passed. Item 5, citizens' comments for items on the consent agenda specifically. So this is for items 6A through D. Anyone wish to comment on the items on the consent agenda? This is for the McQueen signage, couple more guys signage, and the extraterritorial review, along with permanent signage for Green Door Cafe. Anyone wish to comment on either of those items? Okay, seeing none, citizens' comments for items on the consent agenda is closed. Looking for a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Okay. Consent agenda is passed. So if you are here for any of those items for 6A, this is the McQueen signage, the couple more guys, Fitzgerald Glen Cove Extraterritorial Review, and Green Door Cafe, you're welcome to stay for the duration of the meeting, or you're free to go. Item 7, public hearings. Public hearing number 1. This is for a special exception, new residence and attached garage. Location 3007 Sylvester Drive, item, or tax code DELC 0749052. Owner Mark and Luann Van Clunen, and applicant is the same. The matter is a special exception to build a new residence and attached garage that exceeds the maximum floor area ratio, minimum open space, and is located in the front yard street setback.
I'm going to give a quick overview.
Yeah, quick overview would be good, and if the applicants are here, it'd be nice to have them come up.
Okay, while you're getting situated, I'll just give a brief overview. We did discuss this at last month's meeting, but in case there's anyone new from the public, I'll try to keep this brief. So this property is located on the east side of Nagawicca Lake, just south of the intersection of Price Road and Sylvester Drive. It's 9,261 square feet in size, so it is a legal non-conforming size lot. Conforming lot would be 10,000 square feet. So the applicant is proposing to raise the existing residence and then construct a new 3,361 square foot two-story residence with 2 unenclosed porches and also a 637 square foot attached garage. The proposed structure does exceed the maximum floor area ratio requirements, the minimum open space requirements, and also it is located too close to the road compared to what is required. So the road setback is 25 feet, and they're proposing to be 10.5 feet from the road. The floor area ratio requirement, the maximum is 0.4, or I like to say it cannot exceed 40% of the square footage of the lot. That would be 3,704.4 square feet. They're proposing 3,998 square feet, which is 0.43 or 43%. And then they go over the what is required for minimum open space. You're required to have 7,000 square feet of open space, and they'll have 6,696 square feet. So because it is a non-conforming lot, they are allowed to ask the Plan Commission for a special exception rather than having to go to the Board of Appeals for a variance. And we can go into the criteria for a special exception in the discussion and action section more. The reason why the applicants are really proposing to go closer to the road is that they're trying to maintain the shore setback that exists with the neighbors. So you can see on the screen, the subject properties highlighted in blue, and then the two adjacent properties are a little bit further than the lake. They're required to be 50 feet from the lake, and they're gonna be over 80 feet from the ordinary high water mark of the lake. They do provide several reasons for justification in the report. It's a pretty lengthy letter, so I'm not gonna go through the whole thing. I'm expecting that you have read through it. But just in real brief, they talk about how the property is legal non-conforming in size, that the property is unique in that the right-of-way, if we go back to the map, I'll show you, you can't really see it on this view, but the right-of-way is much wider in front of this property, and you can see there's quite a bit of green space between the physical road and the right-of-way line. As you go further south, the right-of-way is much narrower and gives the property owners more space and relief from the road. And then they're also stating that, that the end product will result in a reduction of impervious surface because it'll be closer to the road rather than further away, that there's an increased structure distance from the lake, that the enhanced lake views will be provided for the neighboring properties, that the proposed construction will improve traffic safety. They are removing a shed that's currently located in the right-of-way of the road. And then they're saying that there'll be additional area for drainage and snow removal because of that. Increase in boater safety and operation based on the angle of the boat traffic crossing the water in front of their house. Reduction in tree removal, locating the home closer to the street is more consistent with other homes on Sylvester Drive. Due to the soil conditions, they're not allowed to have a basement. That would relate more to the floor area ratio and open space than the road setback. And that building the home will enhance the lot value and appeal and increase the tax revenue for the city. So just real briefly going into how the applicants can apply for a special exception versus a variance. There's very specific criteria in the code. So when it comes down to floor area ratio, they have to demonstrate that the lot is non-conforming in size, which they have. And if it is non-conforming in size, then any approval that the Plan Commission grants can't exceed what would be allowed on a conforming lot with the minimum square footage. So you're not giving them any more relief than anyone with a conforming lot would be able to have by right. So the provision for RL2, which this property is zoned, is that they can't exceed 4,000 square feet or 0.45 floor area, whichever is more restrictive. They will not exceed either of those criteria. They're right under 4,000 square feet at 3,998 square feet, and their total floor area ratio is 0.43. So they are able to ask you for that special exception. Then the open space, same thing, you can't exceed the footprint that would be allowed for a conforming lot with the smallest lot size, which is 10,000 square feet. So in RL2, the footprint of all structures cannot exceed 3,000 square feet in order to meet that criteria, and they are proposing 2,565 square feet. So again, they would meet the criteria, granting them a special exception. I think there was some confusion at the last month's meeting. When I say that, I'm not saying they get it by right. It's just that it gives them the ability to go to Plan Commission for a special exception rather than a variance from the Board of Appeals. So it's the different process that they're being granted. And then the road setback, the criteria there is that they need to demonstrate that it's needed for a safety purpose and that they're meeting the purpose and intent of the code. And so there they listed the reasons that I previously stated. So with that, do you want to explain any of those reasons further or correct anything, add anything to before we open it to the public?
No, that was good.
Would you mind just pressing the button and name and address, please?
My name's Tony Fetterspill with Anthony Thomas Builders, 1208 State Road 83, Heartland, Wisconsin.
All right, and you're in agreement with the overview? I'm sorry, you don't have to press it each time, just press it once and then
Let go.
I think the overall was correct.
Let go.
There you go, perfect.
Not good at this.
All right, that's fine.
You'll
That's
get
fine.
good, don't worry.
Would you like to add anything? Or you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, any questions for the applicant? They're here?
Yeah, I got a few. I mean, now is the time, or do you want to wait till?
Now's a good time.
Okay. So, first off, thanks for not building your house as close to the lake as possible. I mean, we've talked about developing ordinances and stuff because people do that, and it just wrecks the neighbors' views and things like that. So I think you're right out of the chute for that. Second thing, do you have any plans for a deck, a patio, or something like that? And where I'm going with that is impervious surfaces. So when I do the rough calculations of what you're looking at, we're right at about 50%. You start to build a big patio or a walkway down to the lake, those are going to add to that number, and I just kind of want to know where it's going to end up. You're
I
good.
think I'm
You're
still
good.
on.
Yep, you are.
Yes, I think they do plan on doing a patio and a walkway to the lake. If it doesn't meet the impervious surface requirements, they'll either have to come back in or they'll have to do a pervious type surface.
Tough on the walkway, but that's, okay. So, and my last question is, reading the elevations, it looks like you're going to be basically building at about the same elevation you are now. Is that true?
That is true. It'll be a little bit higher, just get pitch away from the house.
What's a little bit higher?
You'd have to look at the survey, but 6 to 12 inches maybe.
Because here's my
It's going to be
problem.
pretty flat.
And here's my biggest problem. The impervious surfaces basically refer to drainage. We're pushing the limits on open space and on square footage ratio, but, you know, the fact you're not building close to the lake, I think, for me, it counts a lot. But I know there's documentation from some of your neighbors. I've also talked to your neighbors, because I live right up the street. And I know what they go through when these properties get built and they're raised up. Because I'm 3.5, 4 feet lower than the next door neighbor. Tony, you built the house, so be careful.
I'm like,
Yeah, so, and that's fine. I mean, I get that, but that's kind of our job now, is looking out for that kind of thing. And I want to make sure that, you know, because I walk my dog every day by there, I want to see that you're building it close to that same level, not 2 or 3 feet up. Because if you do, then Gingresses and Halls are just going to pay the price for it.
correct. We are trying to keep it as even as we can and get drainage away. We do work with the building inspector, and he's very clear about making sure there's no drainage problems to the neighbors, because it comes back to him every time, so.
Right. So, and that's why I'm looking at Scott, is to make sure that when we, because the first condition on Amy's recommendation is just that.
Well,
We
and
make sure
we'll go into more of these are more questions for the applicant, then we get in, this will come up later in the agenda for questions for Scott and like digesting this. We're
Okay.
looking to raise
That's why I
issues
asked
right now.
to begin with.
Yeah, no, I get
That's
it.
fine.
To answer your, like, question about the amount of fill, it looks like it's less than a foot of fill.
All right.
Regarding the patio and walk, we're going to do pavers.
Okay,
We're not doing concrete.
that's good, but still impervious.
Yeah, right, yeah, but it's
So, but no, I
helpful.
appreciate the sentiment. You probably want to give your name.
Yeah, and your name and address.
Mark Van Clunen, with the owner.
Current address.
The current address? 4526 Vedelson, Heartland.
All right.
Thank you. All right, I'm good for now.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Looking at the floor area ratio and the open space, those two features there, what effort did you look into to complying with the current standards of what we're looking for, as opposed to going up on the one and reducing the other?
We actually went by the special exception. I don't quite understand the special exception when the code actually addresses and says you can do A, B, and C, and D. But then it goes on to say in a different paragraph that you can do these things, but you have to do it with the special exception. So we were kind of following that when we were going through. We were already pressed for the amount of space. They have no storage room. We're going to do some storage above the attic, but it can't be higher than 5 foot high in the attic space. So they're really pressed for space as it is, so we went by what was allowed per the special exception in the code book or in the ordinance.
Yeah, because, I mean, what I'm getting at is, did you look and say, okay, if this is what is required, because it does say required, did you look at anything to fall into those guidelines for required?
Yes, we did. Absolutely did. In the part that they talk about for a non-conforming lot, this is what you're allowed to do, but with special exception.
Well, the special exception is a build on off of that. And in other words, if you're falling out of compliance with it, that's where the special exception comes into play.
Understand?
Yeah, I'm looking at, did you look at something, if you didn't take the special exception on the table and say, let's try to push it a little bit more for this, the floor area ratio and cut back a little bit on the open space. Did you look at anything to fall within that requirement?
We cut back quite a bit to get to where we're at right now. And like I said, they have basically zero storage in the entire house except for 5-foot high space above the garage, 2-car garage. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. Is that?
Yeah, I'm just looking, it's a design change. That's what it comes down to. And that's what I'm asking is, did you say, okay, we're looking to build this size of a house. We'd like to have, 4,000, 5,000 square feet, a hypothetical, right?
Correct.
But we know we can't.
And this will come back again when they come back later in the
Okay.
agenda. So we're looking for questions, answers, not.
That's not a debate. I'm not trying to debate.
No,
I'm just,
no,
I'm trying to
no,
get feedback.
I'm just
on
saying,
it.
No, I get it.
this will be back on the agenda for that. We're really looking to extract information so we can make that decision,
All right.
have that debate later.
Tim, just
Fair
tell
enough.
us to be quiet and we'll wait.
No. This is the public hearing part. We'll have the deliberation and
Yeah,
the
we're not part of the
right.
public. It's
deliberation
the
and
public. We
interrogation
talk
later.
first.
But
Yeah.
so.
Great.
Your initial questions, so you can air out your concerns, and then we'll have the
Yeah.
All right.
public questions.
Fair enough.
Following this.
Yeah, bookmark it.
Anything else? Okay, very good. Well, thank you. We'll be back up in the agenda in a little bit. Okay, with that, I'm looking for any public comments on this public hearing. Whoever would like to come up and speak to this particular issue in this public hearing for this item, raise your hand, come up. Yes, Mr. Price.
Hello, my name is, there we go. My name is Paul Price. My address is 1792 Journeys Drive. I also have a property, 3106 Sylvester Drive, which is just across the street from the property in question here. Just a bit of information that you're aware of, but you can see on the map that Sylvester Drive comes like this, and then it jigs over and over like this. Back in 1965, the road was moved back up to Price Road. The people on the other side, in this area here, decided not to spend the $400 to move the road back, which would have added probably 80 feet to the back of their lot. So that's been an issue that they kind of caused their own issue there. But I do have an issue when, somebody buys a lot that they know it's a very small lot with a very small house on it, and then they come in to ask for rules to, change the current rules to, remedy a problem that they knew was there when they bought the house. I do appreciate, we'll reiterate what Mike Hausman said, moving the house back is a good thing. I've seen other situations right down the lake where people didn't do that, and then all of a sudden the lake views were changed. Not to say that the homes on either side of it couldn't be sold and they would move them back up 50 feet and cause them to have an issue, but that's something you have to discuss with the neighbors, in the future. The other issue I wanted to discuss was another thing that Mike brought up was raising the houses up. I don't understand how down Sylvester Drive those houses were allowed to be raised that high and flood out homes that were in between them. So I do feel very good that they're moving the house back and then not raising it up. So if it's real close, I wouldn't have an issue. but just the general principle of changing the rules when you knew what the rules were when you bought the house. There are just so many homes in the lake now that are so much larger than those lots were intended. So anything we can do to eliminate that, I feel is a good thing. So, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anyone else wish to speak to this public hearing? Yes, sir. And just tap the horizontal bar on the bottom and the light turns on, then you're good. Name and address, please.
I'm live. I
You
love
are.
it. My name's Gary Marciniak. I live on 2927 Sylvester Drive, which is 2 houses south of the proposed residence. And I guess I've got a couple of questions because of clarification. My wife and I, when we first moved out there on Sylvester Drive quite a few years ago to raise a family and so forth, and we decided to put on an addition onto the house. We came to the city of Delafield with our plans, specifications, and the builder, and we were told that we could not encroach any closer to the street. We wanted to come back about another 8 feet. My wife went out, got a poster board, had about 12 to 15 houses that had all these garages that were right on top of the road. However, we weren't offered any special dispensation. We weren't offered any variance. We were told this is the law, period. So we had to live with it. A few years later, Mr. Peter Hanley had bought the Ebert residence, or the cottage, to the south of us, which is approximately the same lot size as the proposed that's going up to the north that we're talking about today. And they were told the same thing. Your outline of your building has to be the exact outline of the cottage and the porch, no deviation, no insets, which we had to put in an 8-inch offset for our deck instead of squaring off the house. We had an issue with that with the building inspector. We said, come on, let's just, 8 inches isn't going to break it. But it was an added cost to make that offset. Well, anyhow, Peter Hanley turned around and he wanted to put on a garage too. He ran into the same issue. Now, Mr. Hanley is no longer there. Okay. Mr. Scott Hubbard now occupies that residence to the south of us. So if this goes through, I'm assuming that Mr. Hubbard, if he decides he wants to put a garage onto his addition, he's entitled to do so. What is fair? What is consistent? There's nothing consistent about this. Well, I understand that everything is non-conforming, but you're setting a precedence here. And I'm hearing neighbors like, Mike, I agree with you 10,000% that, what was it, 80 foot from the shoreline back? Beautiful. People don't have an issue with that. If you're going to go 80 foot back, then go for the garage, okay? We just want to know, why are all these inconsistencies? Peter didn't have it, but Peter was allowed to go up 2.5 stories straight up. I mean, he almost reached heaven, for crying out loud. But he blocked 3 of our views. He blocked a bedroom view, he blocked a dining room view, and he blocked a kitchen view. I was told by this governing board, which you folks probably weren't there at the time, but they told me it has no bearing on real estate value. I say BS. People buy lake property, number 1, to use it. Number 2, the view. Our views were lost, and I am going to suffer real estate loss when we decide to sell the house. So my question is to the board, why now? What's changed? Why are we not sticking to our guns and using the same codes and laws that we did before? I get it. You know, these folks they're nice folks. They spend over $1 million on this piece of property, and they want to put up what they want to put up. Okay? Wouldn't you want to do the same thing? Sure. But the Hanley lot, this lot, are almost identical. Almost identical. Yet we're allowing special dispensation for this one lot where the rest of us were denied. My question is, why? End of my story.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Anyone else wish to speak to this issue on the public hearing? Yes, sir.
We're still live, I think.
Yes.
Tom Wolfenberger, 2837 Sylvester Drive. My comment, really, I just want to underscore what Mike, I think you articulated what I was going to speak on. And my concern is really about water management on the property, not just this property, but, you know, broadly speaking, where we cut down on the, you know, the surfaces. We're allowed to put too much concrete, roof structure, and it floods the street at the street level, and it floods down Sylvester, swale or not, still floods. And then you have accelerated runoff into the lake, which is not good on the health of the lake, and Mike, you know that. So that's really where my concern is in the, it's a beautiful design of the house. You know, I like it away from the lake, you know, so there's, you know, good and bad here, if you will. You know, the closeness to the street, you know, to Gary's point, some consistency would be great. But from the water management, the way it affects the neighborhood and the lake quality it's a huge asset for Delafield, and we just need to protect it as well. So I like the fact that we're the 6 to 12 inches versus really raising the house. That makes me very happy. But maybe some extra retention ponds or getting creative with a way to move water into the plan would be welcomed from my perspective. That's it.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else wish to speak to this public hearing? Going once? Okay, public hearing number 1 is now closed. Public hearing number 2, conditional use site plan appearance permit amendment for 805 Wall Street, units 1 through 6 and common elements. This is, the matter is a conditional use site plan appearance amendment to acknowledge removal of a beech tree that was required to be protected and add conditions to mitigate the loss of the beech tree. We're familiar with this, but Amy, you want to give us an overview, and is the applicant here? Please just come up if there's any questions, please.
Okay, so real quickly, this has been discussed in quite a bit of detail. So in real short, the applicants already have a conditional use to build 6-unit condominium just east of downtown. So there's 3 buildings, 2 units per building. As part of that conditional use, they were required to save a beech tree. And they did have an arborist report that said the beech tree could be saved, and there were several recommended measures that needed to be met in order to ensure that protection would take place. The beech tree was unfortunately removed by the excavator ahead of getting the building started. So the city is actually seeking the conditional use amendment in this case in order to amend the conditions. So there is a referenced condition regarding compliance with that landscape plan and compliance with the arborist's recommendations. And we're asking to replace that with a revised landscape plan that the applicants did submit for this month's meeting, which includes the planting of 2 maple trees that'll be 3 inches in size. One will be in the northwest corner and one will be in the northeast corner. There's very limited space out here available to plant trees. And then they're also, or we are asking, the city staff is asking that they pay the appraised value of the beech tree. So Wachtell arborists, a certified arborist did go out and prepare a report for the city and came up with a tree value cost of $12,750. That staff is asking also be paid by January 1st of 2026. And then when you read through the conditional use provisions, there's also a provision that they have to be, that their entire project needs to be complete within 2 years. Because they're going through an amendment, we don't want that time table to start all over again from today's or the council's approval date. So that will go back to the date of common council's approval back in March. So there is an amendment clarifying that. And then rather than referencing the deed, right now it references the developer's agreement is the document that needs to have that restriction in it. It's just solely relying on the conditional use permit now, because the developer's agreement's really intended for the public improvements, and that restriction is intended for the entire development to be complete. Just so that there's not ongoing construction for years and years to come. And then there are some recommended, the city attorney just added a few more things to ensure that they do follow through. I don't have it here in front of me, but I'll get, oh, here we go. So, for example, the very last statement is just adding that the developer acknowledges and agrees that a developer is bound by all requirements of this CU agreement. The developer shall comply with all of the owner's obligations under this conditional use agreement as if the developer was the owner. And the developer's conveyance of the property owner does not release developer from its obligations under this conditional use agreement. And then if they don't pay that $12,750, there's a statement that it will go on the property owner's tax bill, and that the city claims no responsibility for any damage related to the removal of the beech tree. And you'll see a whole bunch of red and blue on here, but that's because since the original conditional use, they recorded the CSM and the condominium plat, so all of the tax key numbers changed in the legal description, and they changed the owner name. So there's just some editorial things that had to be made that really don't change the actual CU.
Thanks, Amy. Do you have anything to add about why you're here, what the public hearing, about what's going on?
No, I think Amy.
Okay.
No, I think Amy
I'm sorry,
summarized
name and
everything.
address, you'll say it now and then
Dan
you want to say it.
Eckerman, 17500 Liberty Lane, New Berlin. We're the developer on the thing. Didn't mean for this to happen, and we're doing whatever it takes to make the city happy to move on, move forward, so.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicants? We'll see them again in a bit. All right, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to this public hearing in this particular situation? All right, so this is public hearing number 2. Citizens' comments on this? Okay. Seeing none, public hearing number 2 is now closed. Item 8, citizens' comments for items other than the consent agenda. So this would be anything else that's on the agenda or anything else that's even just because you're here and you want to talk. All right. Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. Going into the next item, I'm going to bring something up out of order because we've got someone who's going through an arduous process, and this is number 10, item C, DELC 074-99008, 345 Nashotah Road, owner William and Barbara Knopf. This is a site plan appearance approval to operate a farmer's market in accordance with section 52-142-22 of the zoning ordinance, which allows an artisan and craft workshop and studio as a conditional use. So this is really just get some feedback because we're really just looking to schedule a public hearing for this.
Okay, so Bonnie came in several months ago to give a concept presentation, so not a whole lot has changed. So I probably don't need to go into much detail other than the text amendment that we've been discussing for several months, and Bonnie's been coming to each meeting, was passed by Common Council on Monday night. So we got through that step. So with that, tonight, we're just providing feedback, and then we would schedule a public hearing for the January Plan Commission meeting because we're, as of now, not having a December meeting. Bonnie does not plan on operating until the fall of next year, so that we're not delaying her development project. But if there's any information missing for that January meeting, she has time to submit that material. So that is really what she would be looking for tonight's meeting. One thing that she did include in the packet, since the original concept submittal is a little bit more of a detailed site plan, and she does intend on having a full survey when she comes in for Phase 2. And I guess one of the items she would be asking is whether or not you need a full survey for this public hearing for what she's proposing now. So essentially, she's proposing 2 phases. The first phase would be to start a market within the existing buildings, and that would be the 2 most northeastern buildings. And then there's the building in the front of the property that has the trailer shop and the, well, it's all trailer shop stuff right now. Are you proposing to use that other half as the market and coffee shop?
Name and address, please. No, it's-
Bonnie Knopf, address is 200 Neshota Road, Neshota, and then the property is 345 Neshota Road. So building 5 and 6 would be the proposed market initially, and then building 4 is Phase 2, basically.
Okay.
And 5 and 6 would be replaced with new buildings.
Okay, so the building you see in the front, closest to Neshota Road, that says trailer shop, market, coffee shop, she'll be coming back in for an amended conditional use to build new buildings in replacement of the ones she's currently going to use as a market, and that's when she'll come in to use the building close to the road as the market and coffee shop. She is proposing, until she comes in for Phase 2 to build the new buildings, to have portalets, 3 portalet units located on the west side of that northernmost building. It will be partially screened by the lawnmower shop, and then also there's a tree line between it and the future development, or I shouldn't say future development, property that's located in the village of Summit. And then there's also a location on the north side of the buildings for temporary food truck that she would have. Let me look. And Bonnie, if you know this information without me looking, you can. She's proposing up to 4 food trucks on site, 1 Saturday per month. She would begin setup at 9 a.m. and the food trucks would leave the site by 4:30 p.m. For each of those Saturdays. And then the market in general would be, setup would take place on Wednesdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they'd be open Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And there would be no operations on Sunday, Mondays, or Tuesdays. And in order to avoid having to convert the building into in compliance with commercial building code, she can only operate seasonally. So she is proposing a 6-month duration from September to February 2026, and then hopefully come in for that Phase 2 the following season. But she would have to shut down after that February date, so that would be a condition of approval. And then she is proposing to use the existing gravel parking lot. The northern portion of the parking lot would continue to be used for trailer parking. And then the parking lot for the market would be closer to Neshota Road. Right now, there are several entrances and exits into the site. She's proposing to barricade the easternmost entrance during market hours. And what kind of barricades are you proposing?
A fencing,
or
temporary
fence?
fence, yeah.
That might be worth providing some kind of a
Sure.
image or rendering.
And I already am scheduled with Tony to survey the whole property, so that's in the works, as far as that goes.
And then are you keeping for Phase 1 the parking lot gravel?
Yeah, that would be my intention at that point. And keep in mind, it's crushed asphalt, so it doesn't quite have the dust that a conventional gravel driveway would have.
Are you able to mark that at all?
Yeah, the anticipation is that we would be able to go in there and spray paint right over the top for parking stalls.
Any comments or questions before she comes in for a public hearing? And she has reached out to the neighborhood, and there's a few letters in the packet.
Yeah, I have nothing.
So we're looking for a motion to schedule it for the public hearing, and do we have a date in January?
January 28th.
I'll move we approve the public hearing for January 28th.
I'll second.
Any other questions? I'll say if anything comes up where you think you want to communicate through Amy, please reach out. That'd be helpful. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? All right, we'll see you in January.
All right,
Merry
super, thank
Christmas.
you.
Okay, getting back on track, item 9, unfinished business. Item 9A, DLC 0749052, 3007 Sylvester Drive. Owner and applicant Mark and Luann Van Clunen for a special exception to build a new residence and attached garage that exceeds the maximum floor area ratio, minimum open space, and is located within the front yard street setback. So you're welcome to come back up so we can finish our discussion and questions.
Okay, and while they're getting seated, I'll just add, you can see in my staff report, there's a definition for special exception, and the criteria that need to be met. So, Plan Commission needs to grant a special exception by ensuring that it would allow reasonable use of the property, which would not be contrary to or inconsistent with the spirit and intent of the zoning code. And when granting a special exception, the approving body shall find that good cause exists for the granting of the special exception, and that the proposed exception will not be hazardous, harmful, noxious, offensive, or a nuisance to the adjacent neighbor properties, the surrounding neighborhood, or natural resources. And you may impose restrictions and conditions in order to ensure that that's the case, and to protect those adjacent properties, surrounding neighborhood, and resources in the public safety, interest, and welfare of the residents. And as a result, if you do recommend approval, then at a minimum, I would recommend that a grading plan be reviewed and approved by city engineering staff prior to the issuance of a building permit to ensure there is no adverse drainage on adjacent properties. Not so much because of the amount of fill, because it is very minimal, but because it's so flat, it's hard to get the swales in place. So we'll want to have the engineers review that. And then the special exception, as well as any conditions imposed by the Plan Commission, shall be recorded as a declaration of restrictions with Waukesha County Register of Deeds prior to the issuance of a building permit. That is a requirement of the code. And then I just have added that the restrictions shall prohibit any future improvements to the residence from extending closer to the shore than the proposed setback of 86.2 feet. But that restriction does not apply to decks, patios, or a sidewalk, because those types of structures aren't required to comply with that same setback. Well, I take that back. Do decks have to comply with the setback, Scott?
Yes.
So the decks would have to meet the setback. So the 35 feet is for patios, sidewalks, stuff at grade.
Yes, yes, it is.
So you may want to take out decks there, because the justification for their approval for road setback is that they are pushing themselves further from the lake. So you want to ensure that it remains that way in the future.
And I'll just add that this is definitely something that's a nice math equation, right? And, a couple things come to mind, and one is, a gentleman came up and talked about the setback from the road, and it is interesting geography as far as the right-of-way on this turn, which we don't have a lot of these. Well, there actually is a lot of these narrow roads with irregular right-of-ways. But in talking with staff today and Tom Hafner, the idea of conceding right-of-way to maybe accommodate this particular, housing development or house development isn't really that palatable to the city, because in the future, we may want to make this turn safer, wider, and there may be things like water mains or other things going in. Who knows what the future will hold? So the city should retain its right-of-way, but that still makes this lot, geographically unique. And I was asked a question by a constituent earlier in this month about how the special exception comes into play as far as why we'd be not violating, but exceeding the floor area ratio in open space. And my understanding from the last meeting, and it's true, is that it's because it's a non-conforming lot. And so what the special exception route allows you to do is to kind of round up to the smallest lot size that's allowed in that zoning area. So that would be 10,000 square feet, right, Amy?
Right.
Okay, so what that does allow somebody in this particular situation to do is to round up to grant them the size house and impervious, whatever, the footprint, floor area ratio of somebody who had the full 10,000 square feet. But if someone had 10,001 square feet, they wouldn't be allowed to round up for that extra one, you know what I mean? Via the special exception process. So it would be something to consider, and we've have in the past, whether or not the ratio should be preserved relative to the size lot you have. So in other words, if you had a 96% of the size lot in a non-conforming lot to a conforming lot of the smallest ratio, of the smallest size, would you grant someone 96% of the space for the floor area ratio on the open space? That's the thing that's in my head as far as where this comes into question as far as granting the special exceptions here. Does that make sense? I mean, okay.
I do want to also, since we have the opportunity to answer the public comment about previous submittals being denied, there have been a couple of code amendments since those proposals probably came in here. And the reason why the most recent amendment was proposed in order to put these caps on, you can't exceed 4,000 square feet or 0.45%, or you can't exceed the certain open space requirement, was to create some consistency, because people were going to the Board of Appeals, or if, in some cases, coming to Plan Commission for approval, and there were no caps or requirements, so every site was truly being looked at individually, which is a good thing, you should be, but it was creating disparity and somebody being allowed, I'm exaggerating, but 6,000 square feet house on a non-conforming lot versus somebody else being limited to 3,000 square feet. This provided that maximum cap so that it at least put a limit on it.
Which we actually are within.
And
Need your mic
they are
on.
within the
Just tap your mic.
limitations too.
Tap the bottom
Tony, your
bar.
mic is off again.
Which I
Not
believe that
guaranteed approval, but
we
they're
are
within the
in
limitations
those
of,
limits that were set forth in the ordinance.
yes.
Okay.
That allows you to come to this body rather than a different body.
Thank you.
So the measure isn't the same. When you go to the Board of Appeals for a variance, you have to prove that you can't reasonably, essentially, you can't reasonably use that property for its permitted purpose without approval. In this case, what I'm reading off is a little bit different, because that's a very hard test to meet. In this case, it is, that it is in fitting with the surrounding neighborhood, the natural resources, it doesn't create a nuisance to the adjacent properties, that they are able to demonstrate good cause for granting it, and it's not hazardous, harmful, noxious,
I have a couple of questions. What is the setback from the property line for their neighbors?
From the side lot lines?
Yeah.
I can tell you that. 8 feet is the requirement, and they are 8 feet from the north and 8.35 feet from the south.
The special exception, is this one exception or is it multiple?
It's for front setback, floor area ratio, and open space. It's all in the same, main section of the ordinance, but they're asking for all three.
So you've rolled 3 special exceptions into one.
I don't know what you're referring. It's
Well-
noticed for all three. The public hearing was noticed for a special exception from floor area ratio, open space, and road setback. You can approve or deny any one of them. You don't have to approve them all or deny them all.
All right. I think for me, it's a way to get around one exception or multiple exceptions by doing it this way. And I agree with some of the neighbors that I feel that it favors some and not others, the way we're doing this. lake property is very difficult. I don't understand why so many people need such a large house on such a small piece of land. I do fine in a 2,000 square foot house that's 70 foot long. So I'm sorry, but from my schooling of special exceptions, that if you have to make so many special exceptions, and what we're doing here is rolling 3 of them into one, we need to change the ordinance.
They're still separate. These are still separate, and these are individual exceptions that's just combined into one special hearing. So it does, one
But
public
does
hearing.
it read that way to?
Yes.
Is that the way the neighbors out there understand this?
Well, that's how it was noticed in the public hearing.
Okay.
It's not, yeah, so it's not, there's nothing on the sly about this, Laura.
Yeah.
This is.
I'm trying to be fair because.
Well, I get you, I get you.
So I just want to, in my
I've-
staff report, you'll see it says, to obtain a special exception, the request must meet the following criteria. Section 52-199-1, which is floor area ratio, and then I go into the paragraph. Section 52-199-2, it's the paragraph about open space. Section 52-199-3, it's the front setback, so it's all in
But
there.
this is beyond what the main ordinance is. This is an exception that's written into the ordinance that extends that. Because you talked about it's 8,000 some square feet versus 10,000. And this is beyond what the normal is, right? That's what a special
I don't know
exception
what you're
is.
asking. No, it's, so where it is in the ordinance is non-conforming lots.
Right.
It's in the non-conforming lot section of the code. And then when you read that, the improvements you can make for a non-conforming lot are limited, and it lays out how you can go to the Plan Commission for a special exception for certain improvements on a non-conforming lot. And these are all listed.
Okay.
Floor area ratio, open space, and then the front road setback also includes wetland setback, any other shore, wetland, it's all together in one paragraph.
So to Laura's point, Amy, is it fair to say that there's one special exception that is essentially, because this is a non-conforming lot, being asked to be treated as though it was a 10,000 square foot lot, and then it would conform? Like if this building was on a 10,000 square foot lot, it would conform?
If it was a 10,000 square foot lot, it would conform and you wouldn't even be able to go to this
Okay,
section.
except for the fact that they're interested in being closer to the road to deal with dealing with sightlines and that with the neighbors. So those are
And floor area and open, so like, let's say they did meet the road setback,
Yeah.
they would still be in front of you because of floor area ratio and open space. They need all three. So so usually, but this isn't uncommon to any other applicant that's come in, not their request, but how it's noticed and referred to. Like floor area ratio and open space often come together. If they don't meet one, they usually don't meet the other. Doesn't always happen that way. And then road setback, but it's all under one section of the code under non-conforming lots.
But when I look at the numbers here, if it were not a non-conforming lot, the floor area ratio would be legal because it would be less than 0.4 times the 10,000 square feet. The open space would be legal because it's less than it's less than the minimum 7,000 square feet, but if we had that extra 500 square feet, we would be over that 7,000 square feet there. The only not non-conforming, but the only thing that doesn't fit is the front setback, and you've got a proposed 10.5 as opposed to 25. But on the other hand, you've got 86 in the back instead of 50. So conceptually, if we just moved that house 15 feet back, it would fit that one too. So, and so voluntarily, you're moving it forward. I understand what you're doing there.
if we move it forward, we're going to block, the main thing is block the neighbors' views.
Absolutely.
So the way this all came about, if you read the code or the ordinance, it speaks in there about the floor area ratio given a non-conforming lot, exactly what we're doing. It speaks about the open space requirement, exactly what we're doing. It covers that, and it says you can do these things. You can, but you do have to come in for a special exception. So that's the floor area ratio and open space, which are exactly what you're talking about. Those two things are very related, but they are covered for this reason for a non-conforming lot, to say that you're going to be the same as everyone else. What everybody else is allowed, because we changed the rules from when this lot was formed. Now, we've made it non-conforming, but we're going to let you follow the rules everybody else does if it was conforming. We aren't that far out, but we are out of what it is to be conforming. So we are following those rules that are listed specifically, stated these areas, sizes, everything, that give examples exactly what we're doing in the ordinance. So let's put those to one side. It asks for a special exception, which I don't understand. For instance, the height of a house is allowed to be 35 feet, except for the chimney chase. It's not a special exception, it's exception. So I'm not sure why this is a special exception, but that's the way it's written.
I do want to,
Oh,
I do
that's
think.
really a flippant way to deal with the code. That is a really gross misinterpretation of what the spirit of the code is.
Yeah, so,
So to say that an architectural element violates so I'm just trying to correct your
no,
sales
please.
job here, which is good. I mean, you're doing a good job. But saying that there's an architectural element that exceeds a building height and that somehow is an exception.
I was picking one thing. I just don't
Yeah, I
understand
know,
why
I'm
it's
just-
special exception. That's
But
fine.
you were on a roll. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, be careful, because
Understand.
Don't sell us. You're trying to convince
So
us.
I don't understand why it's a special exception, but I get why you're doing it, and that's fine. So we accept that. The moving it close to the road was from talking to the neighbors, looking at the setbacks, feeling the concerns. We decided to move it back. It gives them some more yard on the lakeside, so they get a benefit from that too, but also they don't disrupt the neighbors. So it was kind of one of those, what do we do? So it wasn't like we were coming in for three exceptions. It kind of grew into that, given the neighbors' input, the non-conforming lot. So that's how it came up. It wasn't like we were intentionally trying to package it, or I don't know how to even do that. We were guided. This is probably the right way to go about it and have it all out here in the open right away. Am I saying that right?
Well, you're making it sound like staff guided you, and that's not the case.
No,
What
we don't
happened-
know. I didn't know what,
Yes,
the special exception was.
I can explain. The applicants were asking for, asking staff to reduce the right-of-way of the road, and the answer was, we're not going to do that. There is an option this is without looking at any building plans. There is an option to seek a special exception from road setback if you can justify you meet the standards of the ordinance. So the application came in for a road setback special exception. We reviewed the house plans and said, wait a minute, you're also not meeting floor area ratio and open space. You have to go to the plan commission for those reasons as well. There was misinterpretation by the applicant in reading the section of the code, and when you read it, they were interpreting it that if you apply for, or if you have a non-conforming lot and you need a special exception and you don't meet the floor area ratio and open space, that the code says you get to have, if you meet the 40, whatever I read off, the 45%, 45%, 4,000 square feet, and you meet the open space, that you get the approval. But there is an added element to it in that they have to justify, it says in the code, the applicant has to justify that they meet the purpose and intent of the special exception definition, which is what I was reading to you. So there's no guaranteed approvals with a special exception, and they do need them from all three standards. But it does give the guidance, there is guidance in the code that suggests that they can exceed the 4,000 square feet or 45% or 3,000 square foot footprint, and that's what they used for their guidance.
Okay.
So I think there's just a misinterpretation of automatic approval and it going to a committee. Because if it was automatically approved, there'd be no purpose in it needing to come to a committee.
understand.
So what you're saying is that there's actually 3 exceptions, but we wouldn't have to, in this special exception, approve all 3.
That's correct.
Okay.
So to finish our conversation from earlier, I'm trying to get your feel on this, and I think I have an understanding, but I guess I'd want to hear it. You know, when you see in the plan, or when you see in the guidelines, it is very clear, and it's saying if you conform to this floor area ratio in the open space, it's not a problem. And I understand that then there's guidelines for looking for the special exceptions. So that's the line you jump then, and you're going into that realm. So that's why I'm asking the questions, is why didn't you just say, okay, we avoid coming before this commission, and we avoid all that, and we can come up with a great design, but now we're just meeting the standards of what we need to follow then?
I would have loved to. But I was able to get it down from where they would like to have, down to the size that fit within the non-conforming with special exception. I was able to get down to there, and then we discussed going from there. Then when they talked to the neighbors, and we added in the special exception to move it farther from the lake. So it was kind of a snowball thing. So could they shrink it even more? What is the amount?
I can,
The floor area, I would say, is probably more important.
Yeah, floor area ratio, they're over by 293.6 square feet. And the open space, they're over by 304 square feet. The open space, they've got a couple of unenclosed porch areas that take away more open space, if that makes sense.
So that's a little bit more than a bedroom taken out. So if they want to give up a bedroom, it makes my life very easy.
Or it's pulling a little bit of room here and a little bit of room there. It's not necessarily,
but
I know what
you're
you're
right,
saying.
you're right.
I know what you're getting
Absolutely.
at. 'Cause,
I agree.
You know, math is easy when you start pulling a foot here and a foot there. You're talking about 300 square feet.
Yeah, if it was 30, 40 feet, we'd be able to pull from different things, but 200, 300 feet, it gets to be quite a bit. It's a big difference in the house.
I'm not saying it's not going to make an impact.
No, I understand what you're saying.
understand
I agree.
You know, and here's the slippery slope that I have reservation on. We say yes, then we have to start saying yes to everything that comes in front. Then what our guidelines that we have here, our ordinance, starts going out the window. And that's what I'm looking at, saying, you know, we have to somehow hold this guideline, the ordinance, across the board to the best of ability.
I agree, and I believe we are following the guidelines for the special exception, which you can accept or deny. It literally specifically describes exactly what we're doing for floor, and only floor area ratio and open space. It literally goes through in your ordinance and describes those for a non-conforming lot, what's allowed, with a special exception. Am I saying that right?
With the special exception.
But Tony, it's
What they
the
can.
maximum amount of relief,
Yes.
not an entitled amount of relief.
Understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think it was understood during the design of the
correct.
construction. To answer Ed's question, have you looked at it? I don't think it was understood that was.
And that's on us.
Entitled.
I mean, we can stop and redesign, take it out, but I think the intent of the ordinance, by stating what it was for this exact circumstance. It's not like we have a 4,000 square foot lot, and then we're trying to fall within it. We're not too far off, but far enough it costs them a room and a half or so. So we thought we were following the guidelines of the ordinance by doing that. And then talking to the neighbors, we added in sliding it away from the lake. So.
And I appreciate you setting it back like that, you know, to follow what's been said.
That's the owner's doing that.
Yeah,
So
I'm just saying, whoever had that decision, we all
it's
do
usually the
appreciate
other way
that.
around for us.
Right.
Right.
People want to put it right up against
that's
the
understood.
setback.
Yeah.
So.
So it's out there. What do we think?
So part of it for me, though, too, is that we just talked about how close you are to the lake. It shouldn't be, but it's still it'd be a different conversation. You could not very easily, but relatively easily reduce it by 300 feet in the square footage, eliminate the open space issue, the square footage ratio, move it 36 feet to the lake and build away. But I appreciate the fact you're not doing that. So,
That would be great.
and that's, that's.
But we're trying to come to a reasonable
Right.
solution here, and I think that's what everybody's trying to do.
I'd be harder down on this too if I hadn't read all of the comments that were written by the neighbors. I mean, not everybody. We got Gary and Tom here, but they seem generally for it, although I talked to two of them already, just on the side. I didn't realize that they already had the letters because I hadn't seen it. And they were concerned about how big the house was, but that seems to be a regular thing. My bigger issue is still going to be how we manage the stormwater runoff.
And I think that's going to be an issue no matter what, if we take the square footage out,
Absolutely.
I think we're still going to have the side yards
Yep.
be about 8 feet, which is where the real issue is going to be, and trying to maintain that. And that's why we have, if you look at it, there's very, very little grade difference at all. And we only have it on the side yards just to get it to pitch away from the house, that's all, so.
Yep. Like I said, that's probably one of my bigger concerns, just from the lake perspective, so.
So what do you think, Dirk?
I think that floor area ratio flaunts the non-conforming lot issue, where we can give a special exception up to 4,000 square feet, and so we've got 3998. I mean, it just feels to me like you said, this is the most we can do, so that's what we're gonna do. And there's no give and take there, and that bothers me.
I do understand that. No offense. It was very difficult to get down to that 3998 with them. I mean, they have no basement, they have no storage, they have nothing. We're trying to invent some storage above the garage. They're trying to look at doing some type of lift system to get stuff up there instead of carrying it up and through the house. Just, it's, I understand your concern. It's not like we went up to it. It's like we were able to get it down to it. And that, it's a different perspective, so.
But you're on a postage stamp sized lot. I mean, I have a house like this, I'm on an acre. It's different.
Very much so. I'm on 1.25 acres. It's very nice to have the room, but I don't have a lake, so.
So if you, on the screen is the actual plan, if you want to see that. This is the first floor plan.
Great River Commission dinette, they have a first floor office, and the office is for aging in place, that they could convert that powder room into a bathroom if they need to move down there. That little space in the middle is mechanical room that we don't have anywhere to go in the basement, so that takes up space. They have a mud room and a little, like, desk area back in the back area. Then they got a front entrance and the garage. I mean, I don't think they're going overboard, and I think they have 3 bedrooms upstairs. And yeah, 3 bedrooms and a loft, and then they have 2 bathrooms.
Yeah, really, the front setback, the 10.5 feet, as it sits now, it's pushing it out there, and who knows what the future holds for any kind of utility work that could possibly come in. So it's difficult to try to know, is it 5 years or 55 years from now? It's an unknown. I don't have as big of an issue with that, with saying yes to that. I have the issue is with the floor area ratio on the open space. I just can't get on with saying yes to that, for me. Would you look for a motion?
I am looking
All
for a
right.
motion.
I would make a motion to approve the front setback as proposed but to deny the floor area ratio and the open space as proposed.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Yay.
Okay, so it's 3-1. All right, is that clear? You can talk to Amy about how that means you go forward.
Wait, three, oh, yeah.
Okay, item 9B, DLC 098066006 through 66012, 805 Well Street. Applicant, City of Delafield, even though we're getting our applicants coming up here to, they're the property owners. This is a site plan appearance permit to be amended for a 6-unit condominium to acknowledge removal of a beech tree that was required to be protected, and add conditions to mitigate the loss of a beech tree. So how do we act on this, Amy? I think you explained it, but
I did. I am looking for the conditional use amendment, just so that you have it in front of you. So essentially, you just need, sorry, my reports are all out of order here. Do you have my motion, proposed motion? Don't seem to have it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I described what they're proposing. I'm just asking that you recommend that Common Council amend the conditional use permit subject to the conditions in the enclosed amendment to the conditional use permit agreement and subject to city attorney review. The agreement that you see on the screen, you don't have a copy of it, but it's on the screen, has already been approved by the attorney. So everything in red on the screen is information that, well, now they're both red. This darker red is what the city attorney added. So he just clarified the tax key numbers and the legal description. And then, we changed owner to developer and throughout. And then I had added, this is already in your packet, additional whereas clauses in the CU agreement to reflect the amendment, the meetings related to the amendment. So last month's meeting, this month's meeting, and then it'll go to Common Council. So as part of an agreement, we lay out each meeting that takes place and the action that happens. And then really the conditional uses that are being amended that you care about include deleting the reference to the previous landscape plan and beech tree and stating that the applicant, developer, and owner shall comply with the landscape plan prepared by Bar Design Group with a revision date of April 9th, 2025, and is further modified by Ware Design Build on November 10th, 2025. And the updated landscape plan includes the planting of 2 additional sugar maple trees, 3 inches in diameter. All newly planted vegetation shall be watered and monitored regularly to ensure survival. And then the next condition is no later than January 1st, 2026, the owner and or developer shall pay to the city the appraisal value, which is $12,750. And then there's additional language about it going on the tax bill if they don't, and that they release us harmless. And then they have to finish the project within 2 years of March 17th of this year, which is March 17th, 2027. And then there's a definition for what fully developed means. That means all physical improvements have to be complete. And they also agree to being bound to all of the requirements of the CU by signing this document.
is there any questions on that? I mean, I've lived this for the last month plus, so and it's not, it's painfully funny.
Yeah.
Only because, we put a lot of work into a tree, and we did it with Chick-fil-A too, if you remember
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and it's rightfully painful that we have to go through this arduous process to
Yeah.
undo things that were written into our conditional use in that. And so, the appraisal is in there, as well as what's, there's 3 different ways to arrive at a price. You can't replace the tree. To do that, there's nobody in a nursery that's gonna put a tree in the ground for 70 years and say, this is intended to be moved and this is what it's gonna cost. So, yeah, the value is not arbitrary, but it's defined by 3 different parameters, and you see how we arrived at it in the appraisal. One of them is just our code, and that's really the value that's put down there, so I don't think there's anything out of line there. But you understand how this plays out? I mean, you've been involved too. So, any other questions, or other than recommend this to council to get this thing moving forward and amend the conditional use?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so can I get just a minute to
Yeah.
say this stinks? Sorry, I don't want to be in a position to adjudicate whether you guys did this on purpose or not. But I can tell you, more on the lake welfare side, time and time again, people come in here and say, yeah, we want to do this. And we say, no, you can't, you got to do this, and they ignore it. I am so tired of, I'd rather beg forgiveness than ask for permission. Oh my God, I'm tired of that. I don't know if you guys did that or not, but it's a lousy position for all of us to be in, to sit here and call you a liar, if that's the case, what have you. But all the effort that goes into something that's a requirement, you guys are professionals. You can make these things happen correctly, but they didn't. And then we're in a position to unravel a bunch of things that took a lot of time. Again, I've done this time and time again on another committee. It's just, sorry, I'm done.
No, don't be sorry.
Yeah.
You appreciate your time that you've put into it.
I was very upset about it because I have a lot of friends who are in all kinds of building development. And I thought, how does this happen? Did they not have a project manager that managed this to make sure that this type of thing would, because it was perfectly laid out. I read everything that the tree service and what was required in it, and I don't understand how this happened. Because before anything took place, that tree should have been protected. It said it right in the paperwork. And I have to say that the tree services here that I'm looking at, all their paperwork, I thought was well detailed in what should happen, and I don't understand how it could not have happened the way it was supposed to go. It's a shame. And I see the evaluation, and I read the comments from the Johnson's Nursery and from Winchell, and how much value that these trees bring to somebody's property. It really kind of stunned me. And I wondered why, instead of planting maples, at least plant, because it was somewhere in this paperwork, it says $250 for a young tree, the same type, European. Why we couldn't have at least one.
We talked about this quite at length at staff. It's unusual to have that tree thrive here. So to bank on another one doing the same thing and in our lifetime or whatever, I mean, we looked at the options.
You plant trees for tomorrow.
No, I'm just saying.
They're
If you put
harder to survive. They're harder to survive.
If you put in a 7-inch birch tree and spend $8,000 on it, it will take 7 or 10 years to die.
No, I'm talking about, because in this paperwork, they talked even about a younger tree
I know, like to
Yeah.
same tree type.
in the same
It
spot.
didn't belong there, frankly. That's
Well-
why we wanted it to stay. Okay,
Evidently, it was happy.
I know.
I know
Okay.
from planting things, some things
okay,
don't like one
so-
spot, but they like another.
So understanding all this, and trust me, it was a bad Monday morning email when I got the fact that this thing was
Yeah.
torn down. It's on my watch. I'm supposed to be in charge of the city, right? But I don't want to look backwards. We got to fix it, and this is the way to fix it. And it doesn't undo what's happened.
Yeah.
It puts us on a path forward. If we go way back before that happened, this is a very welcome development if you look at what was there, okay? I mean, nobody cherished the cinder block Kwanzaa hut thing that was there. It was a nice business, and I'm sure they're doing well someplace else. This is a big improvement for the city. Let's go forward, eyes on the road, and make this thing a success. And that's all we want for you guys. And, you know, let's lock arms and make this work. And that's what this next step is gonna be, is to turn this into something positive. We'll, you know, we'll ultimately forget that this happened, but, let's make it the best we can do from where we're at today.
My hope is that we can use these funds to plant some high-quality hardwood trees in the city.
Sean will do nothing but,
Good.
right? I mean, he's got a great track record of finding the right spot for the right trees. So,
Good.
So this is going to plant more trees.
Good.
Not that one again, so, right? So with that, we're looking for a motion to recommend that this conditional use be, recommended to council for approval.
Okay, I'll make that recommendation. I'll make that motion to make a recommendation to council for approval.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Or abstentions? All right, thank you. Okay, 9C, DLC 079998 and, wow, 07999999. 940 Indian Spring and 1050 Indian Spring Drive, owner Sean Kelly. Applicant site plan appearance and approval for grading activities associated with future development of the properties. Is the applicant here?
No.
Not here.
Okay. Well, Amy, what do you have for us? What's going on here?
So we discussed this in August and September. Plan Commission did actually recommend approval in August, subject to the DNR completing a review and the wetlands. And then there was there were several conditions, but one of them was also that the work had to be completed by October 15th of this year unless extended by staff. So I wanted to make sure I brought it in. We did talk about it again in September. And Plan Commission did ask to wait for the wetland report. So they did have an assured wetland delineator go out and look at the site. He prepared a report that said that there are no wetlands on the property. He did have the DNR review that, and the DNR did confirm that there are no wetlands. And there also was no evidence of a spring being present, and that's coming from the DNR, or not the DNR, the applicant's wetland delineator, and also the city's engineer. So with that, I mean, really nothing else is changing. He's proposing to fill an area of the property and then create it is a depressional area naturally, and that's why there is water that is standing there. He will continue to recreate that low area to retain water, and then they have a drainage system on the south side of the property. So it has been reviewed by the engineer. The engineer is recommending approval. It does need to go to Public Works, and they're taking it to Public Works the first, is it Wednesday? Wednesday's the Public Work meeting?
Wednesdays are, I don't know which one.
Yeah, first Wednesday of December, which is next week, or no, 2 weeks from now. It'll be on their agenda to review drainage and make sure that there aren't any impacts on drainage. But other than that, I am recommending approval of the land altering activities subject to a new erosion control permit being issued prior to them commencing any work in spring of 2026. I should also say, because we knew the work wasn't going to get done this fall, we had them stabilize the site for the winter season and told him he's not going to be able to do any more work. So he stabilized it, and he'll have to come back in the springtime. And that the landscape plan he submitted, which going back to the August meeting, he is proposing to plant 84 new trees, including deciduous and evergreen trees, mostly along the south property line. That plan needs to be reviewed by engineering staff to ensure the newly planted trees will not impact drainage or result in overcrowding. And we just want to make sure they're not too tightly packed in there. And that the city forester needs to verify the health of the trees, location, type, and size, just to make sure that they are accurate and that the applicant is going to comply with the mitigation requirements. There are some claimed unhealthy, dying, diseased trees. We want to verify that, otherwise he's going to have to plant additional trees or mitigate the costs. And that It does say in here, written documentation will be provided to the city from the DNR that the existing DNR-issued stormwater permit includes all the grading activities proposed as part of the plan prepared on August 21st, 2025. So the DNR did issue a notice of intent, but it was before we've been going through the plans and making changes to it, so we want to make sure that both the DNR and city have the same plans. And that all of the work needs to be completed, and all of the plantings in place, and seed mulch prior to July 1st, 2026, unless extended by staff. The idea is we want to get this project done and over with so that it's not constantly under construction. And any revisions to the grade and erosion control plan prepared by Parish Survey and Engineering on August 21st, 2025 shall be submitted to engineering and planning staff for review and approval. If the changes are substantial as determined by staff, the matter shall be reconsidered by Plan Commission.
I do wish that he would have been here because I had questions. And I understand, hey, nobody understands it better than I do how long this process has been. I live right next to it, and I have to look at it every day. I don't care. I want it done, and I want it done right. I object to the fact that clean fill was not used. There is enough fabric landscaping stuff to wrap my house twice in that fill. There is edging, because this all came from projects that he was working on. And I know that because I have now different grasses, like the pumice grass, growing in different spots all over that lot. There is so much debris, broken concrete, cinder blocks, everything in that fill, that whoever buys that property is going to have one heck of a mess. That on top of the fact that none of this followed the soil borings that were done by Hope Church, and they were extensive. They went from 5 feet to 13 feet all over that property. And the work, they took all the core samples back to the lab and tested them. None of this applied in this permit. And it should have been, because there are areas that are problem areas on that land. It is not a good piece of property. And what I fear the most is the water, because even the dentists, I still get water because they're on a slope. My property is lower. When it rains, my husband even called Kelly because there was a ravine behind us and behind my neighbor to the east. And despite what he says, I watched his guys fill in some of the depth of that. And that thing held thousands of gallons of water when it would rain. And my fear is that we're always pumping water. It's going to get worse. So I want to make sure that this property is not going to affect my property. So, and the other thing was, and I told Kelly about this, is that he needs to say, and this is not marked, where the well is. Was the well evacuated and done according to state standards? Were the septic, because there were 2 buildings at one time. When I first moved here, there were 2 buildings. There was one right behind me. Were there 2 wells or 1? That needs to be investigated. There were septic systems. Were the septic systems evacuated properly according to state standards? None of this has been answered. So I want to see the property done, but I want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Laura, thank you so much for your personal knowledge of the area. And when you say I know you mean we. I mean, as a city. Okay, so
Right.
I mean, it sounds very personal, and it is, because you're right. You're a neighbor, and you are
Yes.
you are a commissioner as well.
Right.
And it's your responsibility to represent the city.
And my
As a
neighbors.
as a neighbor, you are representing the city. So this is all really good. You don't have a special privilege because you're up here.
No,
But
I know that.
But so the first step is to formalize a plan that we can leverage and work from and toward future approvals. Right now, we have none. So right now, we have really somebody who's managing a lot. Is that about right, Amy?
Managing a what?
Just, he's got a piece of property.
Right.
There's
I
not- there's not
I don't
necessarily a
blame him.
plan.
There doesn't seem to be, I
So-
do not blame my neighbor, Kelly. I
No, no,
really
no,
don't.
No, but so this is the first step in saying we're adding structure to something that doesn't have any right now. And we're looking to approve what's proposed to control and manage future development and anything else, any activity that's going on in the future.
Well,
Okay.
there is a problem because my neighbors really are kind of upset about anything dealing with the city. Because you look at the corner by us, Highway C and Indian Springs, what happened there should never have happened. And I have complained about that.
So we're getting off, we can't talk about other
But
things off the agenda.
Well, the same thing happened behind me now.
Okay, just stop. Let's talk about this particular
All right.
property and this particular
All right.
application.
This is not a landfill.
Understood. So
So
what
what they.
go ahead,
what-
Amy, please.
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell you is, he came in, he got a stormwater permit from the engineering staff, because it was a grading project. I believe he was taking fill from another project and bringing it here so that he could hopefully make it more desirable for future development, because there were low spots. He got an engineering permit. That project and grading and exposed site was taking place over a very long period of time. So I reached out to him and I said, look, you have to come in front of the plan commission and get site plan approval for this, because it's no longer a little project that you graded and filled and came in. But it's, in general, like the grading and tree cutting outside, which is the other area, outside of a project, a development project, it's a little bit of a gray area in that there are other ways of approval, such as a stormwater permit versus coming to this body for. So I don't know, I mean, I guess you would have to explain further about what the concern is outside of this meeting related to the corner development and this development. But as far as I know, neither of them have violated anything. But on this case, we need to get it buttoned up, because it does become that. This is no longer a grading project that gets restored within 7 days. It's like a landfill.
Yes.
So that's why we did ask him to come.
Yes.
He said, fine, I will finish it up. I will complete the project and be done. So that's what he has agreed to. It got delayed
Right.
with the wetland, and now he's waiting until spring.
Like I say, I'm not upset with him. I'm more upset with the city because I feel there was a whole lack of oversight.
Well, our offices are open Monday through Friday, but right now let's
Yeah.
approve this permit so we have something that is structured.
I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve the proposed land altering activities as presented, subject to the 6 conditions that Amy's outlined in the.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, or abstentions? Okay.
Abstention.
Abstention, okay. Thank you. Motion passes. All right. Item 10B. Oh, wait, no, we don't. Item 10A. DLC 0733998002, 3047 Village Square Drive, owner Delafield Station, applicant Steve Swatzek, Custom Culinary Creations, applicant requests permanent signage approval to advertise a business known as Savory. You're a very patient man.
Yes.
Name and address, please.
My name is Adler Kennedy, and 3926 Liberty Street, Sullivan.
All right, Amy, what do we
Okay.
have?
So normally these would be on the consent agenda, but there's a few things that need to be resolved. But in order to not have the applicant wait until the end of January, if they can be resolved outside of the meeting setting, I wanted him to get on the agenda. So, I don't know if you remember, but Savory is a new tenant that's currently remodeling a space in Village Square for a sit-down restaurant. And they are gonna be opening hopefully soon, correct?
We're anticipating around New Year's, yeah.
Around
Nice.
New Year's. So they're proposing a wall-mounted sign, which will be 33 square feet, so that part, I mean, it doesn't exceed the city's size requirements. It's going to be wall-mounted above the entrance door. There will be low-voltage LED lit channel letters associated with this sign. And then the sign will be black, as you can see on the picture. They are proposing to attach the letters to the building with a raceway and going and looking at the multi-tenant program that was created by the landlord. They're actually not allowed to use raceways on the building, so that would require them to do a little extra design work on creating individual channel letters.
We are in discussion with Signorama Pewaukee to get a halo lit sign to
Okay.
adjust that, to accommodate.
So in that, it changes how they can light the sign when they lose the raceway. So it sounds like they're gonna propose a halo lit sign. And then the other requirement is that the height of the sign can't exceed 24 inches. With that, this is kind of a goofy,
Don't say goofy.
with that, well, it's really hard for them to meet the 24-inch requirement because of the Y, is what I'm trying, that makes it goofy.
'cause
It
it
would
has a-
shrink to a really small area, and it's already a short name, and so it's hard to make it fit. They did make it a wider sign so that the lettering is more clear. So essentially, like, what I told him is, if you can get the landlord's approval, I think we can call it 24 inches on the top and 24 inches on the bottom, and that would be fine. Right now, it's 25 inches. I think they can easily shrink it to make that work. So I just want to make sure that that's acceptable to the Plan Commission, and the fact that they may go with the individual channel letters with the more halo lit, which is becoming a pretty popular way of lighting signs, and is actually more dim typically than the full internally lit signage. They also are in what's been challenging for them is there's going to be a change in the landlord. And so and I don't think that's happened yet, or is it happening?
Not yet, but we have the new owners that are bidding on the property or in negotiations are Broadreach Retail, and it's currently owned by Philip Edison, so.
So they need to, either get things taken care of with the current owner and get approval from the city right away, or wait for the new landlord and get their approval. But I would need a sign off from the landlord either way because of the way the multi-tenant program is written. And then they're also proposing a panel letter sign, which is pretty straightforward. It's the monument sign as you enter into the main site, and they're just using a block. And they'll have an arrow facing their building. It's a little bit hard to read. I mean, I did let the applicant know that when signs are in cursive writing like that, sometimes it can be hard to read. The building sign looks a lot better as it became a little bit wider.
Yeah.
So my guess, what I'm asking for is a motion, and if you do approve it, it should be subject to written approval from the landlord, that the signage meets the intent of the multi-tenant program, or that they would need to modify the signage in compliance with the program for review and approval by staff. And if staff deems modification substantial, it would need to come back to Plan Commission.
I will make that motion to approve, as stated.
Second.
Any more discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, or abstentions? All right, motion passes. Hey, so if we're gonna eat there, what's the best appetizer and what's the best entree that you could recommend?
I would say we're gonna do a steak tartare appetizer and a bison rendang entree.
Let's go.
Oh.
All right, open up soon. All right, good luck. Thank you. Okay, that was a long time to wait for a commercial. Okay, so item 10B, DLC 0804988001, 3250 Hillside Drive, owner B&G Realty, applicant Ryan Butler, site plan and appearance approval and a business plan of operation for the development of a veterinary urgent care facility. Hope your pets never need one, but if we do, we might get one here. Amy.
Okay, we talked about this one at last month's meeting, so, I think we already talked about the fact that this site is currently subject to a planned development conditional use. There's several properties that are part of it. In that conditional use, there are a couple of criteria that would apply to this site that are important to know, and that's the architectural design, materials, and colors need to coordinate and be harmonious with the rest of the development. The same with the signage, although that's been a little bit lost over time, but should still look at that and make sure it's not completely out of sync. And then there are site plan statistics that have to be met. 48% green space, including the steep slopes, and then total impervious surface can't exceed 12%. I think I've got this a little goofed up. 12% building area, 34% maximum parking and driveway area, and 6% public streets. So they did some math, and it does look like they meet all the criteria. If you'll remember a while ago, Avery and Birch came in. It didn't seem like they were going to meet it, but at that time, the calculations were provided, included Home Depot, and Home Depot is not part of the conditional use, so it takes quite a bit of hard surface out of the equation. So we will, as we get an absolute final plan, we'll make sure that they still fall within the numbers, but it does look like they will. Because it's that plan development conditional use, as part of this site plan review, it's also a specific implementation plan. So whatever you review and approve will have to go to Common Council, and if there's any pending conditions associated with your review, we'll have those addressed before final approval by the council. They do need to remove 10 trees in order to accommodate the development, and they are going to be planting several trees, but I couldn't determine if they needed to mitigate or not because I don't have the sizes and the species of the existing trees in order to determine whether or not they're on the priority tree list and to find out how many inch per inch you need to mitigate for. They are proposing to plant 12 new deciduous trees and 7 new evergreen trees, almost 100 shrubs and grasses and perennials. So they're certainly doing quite a bit of landscaping. In fact, I'll go to the plan because this is a nice plan that we have here. We will have engineering staff review it and make sure the species and density are appropriate for the site. So I assume they will end up meeting the criteria, but if not, they will have to pay $250 per inch or add additional trees to the plan. We'll want that figured out before you go to council. And then the building itself, they did make some adjustments since the last meeting. There was a little bit of discussion regarding the roof line being significant without any additional architectural detail. So, and the applicants can add, but they added a little more dimension into the roof structure, and they added these 2 dormers on the north and east elevations, which they'll also add signage to. They're not proposing signage at this time. I'll need exact measurements and what have you, and materials and lighting and all that. So they added those dormers. They also added some shaker siding material in the roof line, which wasn't in the previous submittal, so it breaks up the different types of siding. And they added a little bit more dimension in the roof. I'm not sure how to explain that. Maybe you can, but there's just a little extra gable element to it on this, where this cedar shake, or this shake is. I think on both sides you added a little bit of an extra element to it. Then engineering, the review is pending. I think I actually saw a letter come in late this afternoon, right before the meeting, but they do plan on putting this item also on the December Public Works Committee, so any outstanding items will be addressed at that time, and then will need to be addressed as part of Common Council's review. However, engineering did look at it, and they do feel that there's enough space on the property that they've allocated for stormwater management. And they are proposing a facility in the northwest corner. You can see here on this grading plan and site plan, there is going to be a facility. And then some of the drainage goes toward a regional facility that's part of the whole plan development. Signage, you can see that there's the apartments have an easement for a sign on the east side of the property. They're proposing a monument sign, which they'll have to come back for on the west side of the property. But I do want Plan Commission at least to review the location. It's just outside of the right-of-way. It's certainly additional feet away from the physical road itself, but about in line with the sign that's there for the apartments as far as distance from the road. They'll need a road setback waiver, so if you were inclined to deny it, they would want to know now so they can adjust their site plan. It doesn't look like the sign would have any impacts on visibility or snow plowing or impact traffic safety. There will be no new accesses to the property. They'll be using the site that's used by Marcus for their parking lot, and then also the access to the apartment buildings. We'll need to get an easement on the west side of the property from Marcus. Lighting, they do have, let's see here, I can try to. It's hard to see. These photometrics are always really hard to see, but they're proposing 4 pole lights in the parking lot. They'll be 16 feet tall with a 2.5-foot base, so that's a pretty reasonable pole as far as height goes. The lights will all be full cutoff, and then there's a pole light on the south side of the property. I've got my cursor on it, if you can see, at the entrance area. That's gonna have a full blocking shield from the adjacent residential site to the south, which also has vegetation screening the property. And then they're proposing 9 bollard lights around, adjacent to the sidewalk around the building, and then 12 wall-mounted fixtures, including sconces at the entry doors and some additional security lighting. So it'll be pretty low scale. I'll send the lighting plan and the landscape plan to our engineering team for review, and that actually goes to a landscape architect and a lighting engineer. And then, I think I showed you last month the dumpster enclosures in the southeast corner, and they'll have a enclosed fence. I believe it was composite material.
Correct, yes.
To match the building. And then the fence, I think you said it at the last meeting, but I didn't write it down. The height of the fence for the little dog area to use the bathroom, do you have that height?
Yes, it's 7 feet.
7 feet tall fence. So you'll want to ensure that that's acceptable to you. And that's all I have unless you have questions, I believe.
I have one. The monument sign, that's going to be off of the sidewalk by how much? Do you know?
Off the sidewalk
Because
by
there's
how
a
much?
sidewalk, because I take it that's where the monument sign is going to be on, is on
Yeah.
Hillside Drive. And it should be back from the sidewalk, and how far is that? Do you know?
It's a good question. It's hard for me to read, but,
It's not dimensioned on the plan, but it looks to be about 3 or 4 feet off the sidewalk.
is the sidewalk on your property then?
No, it is not, no. Our north, by the way, Peter Ogorek, architect with Perspective Design, 11525 West North Avenue, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. And then also, as you met last week, Dr. Mary, go ahead and introduce yourself. You gotta push the button. There you go.
Mary Butler, 34036 High Drive, East Troy.
Laura, I'm just, Mike, if you can put the screen on, this is probably a good map here. Here's the sidewalk right here. It goes right up to the lot line, and then they are pretty close to it. So like the landscape border is gonna go right up to the edge of the sidewalk.
Is that a normal distance, or is it a little,
Well,
seems a little close?
So the way the ordinance reads, you have to meet the 30-foot setback, unless you get 30-foot setback, unless you get a waiver from Plan Commission. The thing with signs is actually meeting the building setback is very hard typically, because then you get to a point where you're not very visible to the traffic, which is the point of the sign. But I guess there is a question of, we want to make sure you can maintain around the sign, that there aren't visibility concerns or issues. It might be something worth, when it goes to Public Works Committee, having them take a look at it too.
What I'm concerned about is in the winter months with snow throwing the sidewalk, it's gonna pile up close to that sign and you're gonna see it.
So, thank you for your question. We did submit details of the signage, so it should be on the elevation drawing.
Yeah, there's,
Amy, so a couple of items relative to the signage. I don't know if that ordinance changed since the rest of this site was developed. I'm assuming it did, because all of our neighbors, including the residential neighbor, are all right up to the sidewalk.
If you look at Tires Plus and all that stuff.
Yeah, so La Quinta Hotel, Marcus, KinderCare, Pacific Bistro, everybody's sign are right up against the street. And so this one is basically consistent with all of that as the PUD actually, requested for consistency in that signage. The second point that you brought up about this, about the snow removal, you'll notice that we have a matching base on that sign, so that sign is actually brought up off the ground. That base matches the stone that's on the building, and so we think it's a pretty pleasant solution there.
I just ask because I don't want it to become a problem for you.
Yeah, yeah.
do you want to show the materials that you
Sure,
brought in, just so they have an idea of what the building's going to look like?
Doing your best Vanna White.
Yeah. So we didn't put that one on there.
Yeah.
But this is the stone material for the base, so everybody can see it. And then the shingles,
Okay,
the two siding materials, so this is basically the field. And then this is trim, corner boards, frieze boards, all that kind of stuff in that color. This is the brake metal for fascias, gutters, downspouts, soffits in that material. This is the paint color for hollow metal doors that are on the back side of the building. This is to represent the heavy timber columns and trusses. Obviously, I wasn't gonna carry in a piece of lumber. So that's to represent that material. This is to represent the material for the fences, both the dog run fence as well as the material that's surrounding the trash enclosure. This is the window frames, so the same black color as the brake metal. And this is the sill material that goes on top of the stone.
nice combination.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think you do a good job. It's an interesting eclectic mix of businesses there. So we've got like the KinderCare, which is sort of homey like what you've got, and then we've got the Hillside Apartments, and then your neighbor's Tires Plus, but.
Brick and block.
It looks like, and I appreciate your effort in taking feedback on like the roof lines and the extra detail. I know that comes at a cost, but I think it's gonna make it more appealing and fit in, so. So anyways, and I don't think, I don't know, do they allow cats at Hillside? Do you know?
Do they what?
Allow cats in the Hillside development with the, we just put in a big crosswalk for all these ladies. Can they take their cats to the?
Their cats, their chihuahuas. Yeah.
Is-
That was one of the comments that I was going to make, is that I would suggest that you talk to your neighbors at the Hillside community, because I have, and they were completely surprised about your development. So they're interested, cautiously so. And a little communication goes a long way with those folks.
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
They're a wonderful group.
Now, this is veterinary urgent care. Do you do regular veterinary work too?
No, it's primarily urgent care, but we also will do some dentistry as well.
Okay.
Need for dental care for animals.
Yeah, see, I know all about this urgent care, more than I care to, for veterinary. And that's why I asked, is it also regular appointments for veterinary care?
That's not our plan at this time. So
Okay.
it's just like emergency, urgent type
Yeah.
stuff. You can't get into your regular vet.
Right.
Same for dental? I guess I never heard that before. It's like, in other words, does it require a dental emergency for me to bring my bulldog in, or?
Believe it or not, there are quite a few dental emergencies.
Are there?
but
Okay.
we would be offering some other additional dental care. And
Oh, okay, all right, interesting.
And then just a reminder, they are going to have a small section that has a self-serve wash station where people can come in and out from the outside of the building that will only be open during hours that the main the urgent care is open.
Self-serve, no groom?
Correct.
Okay.
So you put your wet dog back in your car?
I would,
They
I would,
probably have a fancy blow dryer thing as part of it, right?
Yeah.
We used to use one. It actually
All right.
works
yeah,
really good.
yeah.
All right, so back to the building.
Okay, so do you have any other questions other than, so the recommendation, there's a long list of recommended conditions. I'm recommending that Common Council approve the site plan, specific implementation plan, and business plan of operation subject to the following conditions, including that the applicant shall comply with all city engineering comments prior to commencing approval or construction. If any public improvements are required, a developer's agreement shall be reviewed and approved by Common Council. Financial guarantee will also be required. The developer plan shall be reviewed by the Public Works Committee. An agreement shall be provided for access from the Marcus parking lot, including provisions for redevelopment of that site. The lighting plan shall be reviewed by engineering staff. The landscape plan shall be reviewed by engineering staff to ensure proposed plantings are compatible with site and stormwater facilities. Tree mitigation shall be reviewed and determined prior to Common Council. They shall submit a detailed rendering of the fence and dumpster enclosure, including the material and dimensions. They shall submit a separate application for signage for Plan Commission at a future date, and submit a complete and separate application for business plan of operation to be considered by Plan Commission at a future date. Mechanical equipment shall be screened from view from all adjacent properties and the road, and staff shall verify that the final plans comply with the impervious surface, green space, building size requirements of the CU permit. So I think in my recommendation, I also include business plan of operation, but I did not give you those details, so they'll need to come back for that. So if you copy my staff report, just remove business plan of operation from your recommendation of approval, please.
I'll move to approve, to the Common Council to approve the site plan and appearance specific implementation plan of the 10 items listed here in our packet.
Second.
Any more discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? All right, let's keep going.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Appreciate it.
Tough planning commission to be at, but coming at the end.
Oh,
It's never fun being at the end.
No.
stick around, there's worse ones.
Oh,
All
there's
right,
more to
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
all right. So then, let's see, 11, comprehensive plan zoning and ordinance revision. We're not doing that, are we?
Think
Okay,
that's it.
no report. Number 12, reports of city officials, correspondence is in the packet. B, planner, anything else? All right, Scott?
No.
All right, well, and we raised rates for Scott accordingly. He's not the least expensive nor the most expensive in Lake Country.
Thank you.
That was on Monday. 13, Plan Commission meeting dates and deadlines, regular meeting. Next meeting is January 28th, so we get a break. Regular meeting submittal deadline is December 31st, 2025, and seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 8:58 like I predicted. She was within